Okay, hi there. In this tutorial I'm going to be covering PHP sessions. Now sessions are quite similar to cookies, however sessions only have a temporary time expiration, if you like. They will be destroyed as soon as the browser is closed or the connection to the page is lost, if that makes sense. So they're not like cookies, you can't set an expiration time in particular, and they're not stored in the same way. I mean, the ID of the session can be stored in a cookie, or you might have seen in a browser URL something like I can't remember the name, but it's like something equals and just a load of sort of numbers, and I think letters are included as well. But anyway, basically our sessions are similar to cookies, however they're not stored for a long period of time, only until the user closes their browser. Okay, so sessions are a bit different. What we need to do is, first of all, we need to declare or rather call this function called session start. Now this needs to be at the top of every page that you use sessions in. So if you don't have this and you're trying to either echo out a session value or you're trying to set a session, it won't work. You need this session start code in there. In a minute I'm going to show you the error that comes up when you don't use this, so you'll know for the future. Now to create a session, it's very easy. We use $_session, and then in square brackets we give the name of the session. This is just going to be name, and we just equal this value to something. It can be string data, it can be numerical data, whatever you like. Okay, so we've got our session set here. Let's presume that I'm just going to run this for the first time. Let's refresh. Okay, nothing's happened. Now if I again, like I did in my cookies tutorial, if you haven't already seen that, check it out, but I'm going to comment out this code, and then what I'm going to do is echo out the value of the session that I've just set. So that's name. Now bear in mind this is not going to be run, so this could be on a completely different page for all you know, but basically I'm just starting my session and I'm getting a session called name that's already been stored by our server. So let's refresh, and we can see that that's equal to Alex. So you could add this and this code on any page, so you can add your session start and echo session name on any page, as long as this has been started on any page in the current session of the browser. So for example, if I was to create a new page and add my PHP code in, and let's say session start, and we're going to echo out the session name, the one that I've just set. And I'm going to save this out in my sessions folder as new page or new.php. So when we come back to our page here and we click on here and type new.php, we get exactly the same value. Even though we're not working from the page that we created our session, we're still able to access it. However, if I was to close my browser and reopen it, this session probably would still not exist. Okay then, right, let me just show you what happens if you don't put your session start in. You get an error similar to this. Oh, and let's go back, new.php. Yeah, in fact, I mean, what's happening here is we're not actually getting any output. The reason being we haven't started our session. By putting our session start in, you can see that we get our value out. Now the reason it's not coming out for me at the moment is because I don't have that type of error reporting on, but if you did have a specific type of error reporting turned on, I have a tutorial on that as well, then you'll see that you will probably get an error. So we can close this off now, and I'm just going to show you how to unset a session. Now the way to do this is to basically say either unset and then session in brackets, that will unset our session, or what we can do is we can use a completely different command altogether, and that is session destroy. And the difference between these two commands is session destroy will completely destroy sessions that you currently hold. Unset will unset a particular session. So it's up to you really. If you're say logging a user out, you'd say session destroy, and that would basically clear all current session variables that you hold at the present time. Otherwise you can just unset a specific one. So what is what are sessions useful for? If you say entered a website and had the chance to check a box saying remember me. If you didn't check this box, then you'd probably be using sessions, because once the user's browser has been closed, the user will be logged out, and when they come back onto the website, they'll have to retype their details, say their username and their password, to come back into the website. If you're using cookies, this is different, because you set an expiration time, which means that the user will be logged in, or this cookie will be held until the user decides to destroy it, and we'd have to create code to destroy our cookie, like shown in my cookie tutorial. So really, it's up to you whether you use sessions or cookies. Sessions are good for short term, cookies are good for a long term, specific amount of time that you want a piece of data to be held. But if you go onto my PHP project, register and log in, you'll see that I use sessions. This is just because I'm used to using sessions when I'm creating tutorials. However, you can take any form of this. It could be a cookie, it could be a session. It's really up to you whether you want to keep the user logged in for a long period of time or not. So if you've got any questions on this at all, sorry for rambling on, but just feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you around. Thanks for watching. Okay, welcome to a tutorial on PHP cookies. Now, cookies are a really important part of when you're creating, especially a website where you need to store information about a user. Now, the definition of a cookie is a set of data, if you like, stored on your computer, so the user's computer, by the web server. So, for example, when you log into a website, your details are stored for when you next come back to that website. If you've, say, selected an option like remember me, so you don't have to keep logging in. If you don't check a button such as remember me, you'll probably be dealing with sessions which close as soon as the browser, as soon as the user closes their browser. So sessions are killed straight away. However, cookies are stored for later use. Now, I'm going to get straight on and show you how to create a cookie. This is using the set cookie function, and inside takes, I think, 5 parameters, but I'm just going to be using 3. The first vital one that I'm going to use is the name of the cookie, which I'm going to set to name. The second one is the data that needs to be stored inside this cookie, and mine's going to be Alex because my name is Alex. Now the next one's a bit more tricky. It's the time in which it expires. Now this needs to be set in seconds, and to represent this, I'm going to create a variable called exp for expire, and this is going to be equal to the time, and then I'm going to add some value onto here. So at the moment I'm adding nothing, so if I were to say echo this out, and I'm going to get rid of this cookie function for now, I'm just echoing out this time thing here just to show you what it does. So let's refresh. You can see we've got quite a long number here. Now this is the Unix timestamp, and a Unix timestamp is basically the amount of seconds before January the 1st, 1970. So January the 1st at 12 AM or at in the year 1970. So we can see that adding the amount of seconds onto here equates to a date in the future. So for example, at the moment you can see that it's 88, now 89, and as I keep refreshing, by every second this increases. So yeah, this is quite a useful way of adding a specific value onto here. Now we need to find out the time in seconds of, let's say, a day, because I want this cookie to expire in a day. All I need to do is just say 24 times 60, so that gets us the amount of minutes in a day, and then we can times it by 60 to get the amount of seconds in a day, which is 86,400. So if we change this to 86,400, we now have a variable expire that holds the time in the future by a day. So what we can do here is uncomment this, and we can add our expire variable in here. So this is basically going to set our cookie called name with the value of Alex, and it's going to expire in a day, written in seconds, using this time function here. So let's refresh this page and we can see, okay, we've got no error, so I presume that's worked. Now what I'm going to do is use my block commenting to just comment out the rest of this. And underneath, what I'm going to do is I'm going to echo out this cookie. Now the reason I've commented this out is because you don't need to set a cookie every time the user comes onto the page. If you're using, say, a login script to let the user log into a website, you only need to issue this once, and then the cookie will be stored, and you can use it within this time that we've set here. So what I'm going to say here is I'm going to say echo. I'm going to use $underscore cookie, and then inside here is the name of the cookie, so that's name. So if I refresh here, you can see that that's Alex. And I'm not going to do it, but even if I closed my browser, restarted my computer, came back onto this page here, it would still read Alex because it's been stored on my computer. Okay, now if I were to set another cookie, say, let's just we'll bring it down here. Let's say I'm going to set another cookie, and this is going to be age. My age is 19. And my expiration time I'm going to keep as this. So let's just put this back up here, and we can get rid of this. Don't want to make it too messy. So we've got our expiration time, and I'm going to set another cookie under here, and that's going to be the same expiration time, if I can get it right. Okay, so what we're doing here is I'm going to get rid of this. We're setting another cookie with the same expiration time. Let's refresh. Okay, that's been set. So now what I can do is comment this out, and underneath here I can echo out that as well. So you can see we can set more than one cookie in a page. Let's just refresh that, and I get 19. So really what you can do here is construct a sentence. What I could do is I could say echo underscore cookie name, and then concatenate is, and then concatenate my age. So therefore we will have a sentence saying Alex is 19, just from the cookies that we've stored. And again, if I close my browser and restart my computer, for example, or come back on, say, 2 hours later, this information will still be there stored on my computer, ready to use by this page. So you can see that they're really, really useful to use, and also really easy to create as well, and easy to echo out to the user. Now there is a function, we can use print r, and we can print underscore r, and we can echo out $underscore cookie here, making sure we put our line terminator on. And if we refresh here, we can see that we've got an array here, and we have a different value. We've got name, and that is equal to Alex, and we've got an age which is equal to 19. So basically this is telling us the cookies that have been set and the values of them cookies. So this is also quite useful if you need to echo this out to yourself. Okay, now there's another function which I'll cover in the second part of this tutorial, and I'm going to use an if statement to find out if a cookie is set or not. And yeah, that's about it, and then I'm going to show you how to unset a cookie. So join me in part 2 and I will teach you how to do that. Thanks for watching, see you soon. Okay, so just to summarize, in the first part of this cookie tutorial, we learned how to create cookies, we learned how to give an expiration date to the cookie, we learned how to print out specific cookies, and also using this command here, we learned how to print out every cookie that we'd stored. So the next thing to do is, assuming we have created these cookies, I'm going to use this specific cookie here that I've created to check whether it does exist or not. So to do this, we're going to use a function called isSet, and this basically returns a true or false value whether something is set or not. So for example, our cookie, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say $underscore cookie, and I'm going to put name in there. So this is basically reading out in English language. If the cookie name is set, then we need to say echo cookie is set. Right, otherwise we're going to echo out to the user cookie is not set. Okay, so by refreshing this, presuming that I have set my cookie and everything's working, I refresh and we get the message cookie is set. Now this ties into the fact that now I'm going to teach you how to unset a cookie. So let's say up here, just before our if statement, I was to unset a cookie. So unset cookie. Now I'm going to unset just this name one, because presuming you know how to unset this one, you can also unset this one. So I'm going to unset this name cookie here. So to unset, we basically use the same command, and that's just setting it again. So we're resetting a cookie. Doesn't seem to make sense, but it will soon. And we're going to set the cookie name to nothing, and our expiration date up here, I'm going to create a new one called exp unset, and that is going to be equal to the time minus 86,400. Here we've said plus. This would mean that the time is in the future. Now, by setting a cookie to this variable, which is a time in the future, we're actually unsetting the cookie. So if I was to say set a cookie called name, or the cookie that already exists called name, to no value at all, and using exp unset variable, this will basically set it to a time in the future, therefore unsetting our cookie. So if I get rid of this code for now, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to run this page. Okay, nothing's happened, presuming that my cookie is unset. Now I'm going to get rid of this code, so I'll comment this out. And I'm going to put my if statement back into my page. Now, presuming this says is the cookie set name, and we've just unset the cookie, we should get the result cookie is not set. So let's refresh, and we've got cookie is not set. And then from there on you could set it again if you'd like. You can change the values of a cookie. I mean, to change a value of a cookie, you'd be using this command again, and basically you'd be saying set cookie name, and you'd just be typing a new value inside here. So it's not hard to work with cookies. It's quite an easy process, and it's a really useful thing in PHP, so use it to your heart's content. Okay, well, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, please let me know, and make sure you subscribe to receive video updates, and I'll see you guys around soon. Alright, bye bye.
Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy, and welcome to this PHP tutorial on the ternary operator. In this video we're going to be writing a short piece of code, and I'm going to demonstrate how we can make this a lot shorter by making use of PHP's ternary operator. So I'm going to create an example application which is going to involve an if statement, or a couple of if statements, we'll see in a moment, and it's essentially going to check if a user is old enough to do something. You know, there's no context around this, but we're going to be using this as an example just so we can show two examples of the ternary operator. So let's go ahead and write our sample program. You know, it's going to be not a long piece of code, but it will be unnecessarily long anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called age, and I'm going to set this to 18. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an if statement to set a particular variable to true or false, depending on whether the user is old enough. So essentially I'm just going to say if, and I'm going to say else here. So we have the condition here is going to be if the age is greater than or equal to 18, I'm going to set this variable old enough to true. Otherwise I'm going to go ahead and set it to false. Now we could of course remove this else altogether and just create the variable old enough equals false here, so it's essentially guilty until proven innocent. So you know, we could leave it like this, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is create another if statement, and this is going to check whether this old enough variable is equal to true, and if it is equal to true I'm going to echo something out, otherwise I'm going to echo something else out. So we do need an if else here. So I'm going to say if old enough is equal to true. I'm using the triple equals, that's just comparing type as well. Other tutorials that do explain that. And I'm just going to echo out old enough. Okay, very simple. And then if the user isn't old enough, so if this old enough variable has remained with a value of false, I'm just going to say not old enough. Okay, so there's nothing, you know, too complex about this. However, for such a simple piece of code or such a simple operation, we've used a lot of if statements where they may not be necessary. So let's go ahead and look at the result of this. You'll see at the moment we've got old enough. If we change this to say I don't know, 16, we get the result not old enough. So you know, that's how it works. That's what we're doing here. Now what we can do is we can make use of the ternary operator to actually shorten this to one line and this to one line. Now, for such a short application, it doesn't really, it doesn't really matter. But if you have a long file in file length, I guess, in line size, you're going to want to make use of the ternary operator to try and shorten everything a bit more. So let's go ahead and first take a look at the syntax of the ternary operator, and I'll explain how it works, and then we'll take a look at shortening these. So if I come down here, I'll explain the syntax. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing something before the ternary operator. So I'm either going to be echoing or setting a variable equal to a specific value, and then after this we have a pair of brackets which represent a condition as you would normally find in an if statement. Now what we have is very slightly more confusing. It's a question mark, and this is basically like anything after this is the first block of what we want to do if this condition is met, and then we have a colon where, so here is if this condition is met, and here is if this condition is not met, and then we just pop a semicolon on the end. Well, we don't need this, it depends on where it's being used, but in this case it would be. So here is almost the action, what we're doing. We're either setting a variable equal to this value, or we are echoing something out. Now this might confuse you, so let's go ahead and put this into context with regards to what we've just done. So I'm going to be placing this functionality within a ternary operator. So we need to start off with our old enough variable, okay? And our old enough variable is going to equal. Notice I put the equals in, whereas before I just had something, and that's because we could also do echo as well, and we'll look at that in terms of this in a moment. Anyway, so old enough equals, now we have our condition. So our condition is basically just this, so we can go ahead and we can cut that and paste that in there. Now if this condition is met, we just say true. Now we could just leave it like this, but what we do is we'd be best to get rid of, first of all, this, because we don't need that. We're setting this variable here to true if this condition is met, so we fulfilled removing that. Otherwise we could say false, so we've removed the need to store an additional variable. So essentially all of the code I've just removed can be done in one line, as you can see here. So you'll notice that when we refresh our browser we have the same functionality, no errors, and again if we change the age to say 18, this condition is met, therefore this is true, therefore this block here will be executed. So when we refresh we get old enough. Now what's interesting is we can actually apply the same operator, the ternary operator, to this block here. So we can actually, instead of setting a variable value like we've done here, we can actually echo out, and depending on the condition, whether it's met, we can echo something, otherwise we can echo something else. So we can say echo, and in brackets, obviously you wouldn't do an equals here, echo old enough is equal to true. So if old enough is equal to true, echo something here, otherwise echo something here. Okay, so we're just going to be echoing old enough here if this condition is met, and here we're going to echo not old enough. So let's pull this together. We've managed to shorten that into 2 lines of code now, and let's go ahead and check this out in the browser. So when I refresh, you see we get the same result, and again if I change this back to not old enough, you can see that we get not old enough. So you can see here, although a useless example, we have used the ternary operator to shorten our code a significant amount. So that's essentially it. You'll probably find yourself, it's hard to give practical examples in short tutorials, but you'll probably find you may have a series of if statements, and you might want to shorten them and make it a bit more efficient. And in that case, you'd use the ternary operator. As we've seen here, we've created this efficiency here. So that's the ternary operator in PHP. Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy, and welcome to this tutorial on accessing undefined function parameters in PHP. Now, in this video, we're going to take a look at a concept that involves creating a function or defining a function, the code inside of it, but not actually defining any parameters that the function takes. And we're going to use the example of a function that adds two numbers together, and then we're going to look at creating this function without the ability to pass through specifically, say, number 1 and number 2 and add them together, but we're going to allow an almost unlimited, I'm sure there is some limit somewhere, but an unlimited amount of variables without having to define them. So we'll take a look at the problem that we get if we are restricted to defining them, and then we'll take a look at some practical examples. And it's really good way of doing things if you it's the correct way of doing things if you need to pass a lot of arguments or parameters to a function. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at a quick example. So I'm going to go ahead and create a function called add. Now, if you've looked at functions before, you know that you can define which values can be passed to the function. So, for example, num1, comma, num2. This means that we can pass number 1 and number 2 to a function. Then we can do something with it inside it, return that value, and then we can use this outside of the function. So let's go ahead and return, or let's create another variable. We don't need to do this, and it's probably bad practice, but just for the sake of clarity, I'll do so. So I'm going to say num1 plus num2. Okay, so total now is equal to whatever we pass here and whatever we pass here. And then we can return this value and then pick this up outside. So for example, I could say echo add 5 and 10, for example, which is obviously 15. Now, I'm echoing because I'm returning it. I'm not outputting anything within the function, which is, again, bad practice. So I'm echoing the result of this function. Let's go ahead and take a look at the result. You see that's 15. So fairly straightforward. Now, what happens if, say, I want to create some kind of calculator application that allows, a user to, I don't know, go ahead and pass in 10 operations, if you like, add operations. Obviously you wouldn't just add in a calculator, but you get my point. So we could say num1, num2, num3, num4, num5. This would only allow the user to enter exactly 5. If we miss out well, let's do it with 3 and we'll see what happens. So if I just pass 5 and 10 and I say plus num3 as well, you'll see that we should return an error. Yep, so we've got missing argument 3 for add called in, and it tells us where it's called and where the function is defined and everything. So we are now faced with the problem where we have to pass. Now we could pass a 0, but then again, this is terribly bad practice because we are defining parameters that may not be used. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do to get around this. So I'll leave this here. I'll get rid of all of these. I'll get rid of everything in here as well. Now, the way we're going to do is we're not going to define anything in here, but we're going to pick up what's been passed to the function within the function itself. So we want to pick up every value that's passed through. Let's just change this to a 1, so we'll get a result of 16 in the end. So let's go ahead and create our total variable again, but we'll do it this time. We'll set it just to 0, so we've got a standpoint to add on. We're going to increment or append the value, add the value on. We're going to look at two functions, one of which we're going to use in the example, and one of which you may use outside of this. The first one is func_getArgs. Now this is a function. What this function does is it returns an array of anything you pass to it. So you may know that we can use the printr statement to show the result of an array. So in this case, if I pass nothing, so I'm going to cut that out of there, go ahead and refresh, you see that we returned an array. So essentially what we're doing is, well, let's get rid of this echo because we don't need that. We are printing the contents of this func_getArgs array, which is nothing, it's an empty array at the moment. Let's go ahead and paste these values back in. So now what we should have is this func_getArgs should return an array with 3 keys, or 3 elements to it. First one's key 0, key 1 and key 2, and then here is the value of everything that we've passed to our function. So now we can be clever, and we're not getting any errors. We haven't defined anything in here, but we're not getting any errors by passing these values. What we can actually do is we can go ahead and we can loop through this func_get_args array, or the array that it returns, and we can add these values onto total and then output the result. So we can actually do this and then pass loads and loads and loads of numbers through to it. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to use a for each construct. And within here, we're just essentially looping through each element of an array. Now we know that func_get_args returns an array, so we can say for each func_get_args, so for every element in that, which is essentially every element or every parameter that you pass through, as arg, I'm going to say total equals total plus arg, because remember arg is a number. And we're just, passing that through. We could, of course, just say total plus equals arg. That would just be a shorter way of saying total equals total plus arg. And we also might want to cast this to an int. You wouldn't always want to do this, but we're passing numbers through, so we want to go and make sure these are numbers. Now what we can do is underneath this for each, when that's looped through and added everything we've passed through to it, we can go ahead and return the total. So return total. So now if we go ahead and echo the result of add 5, 10, 1, it will loop through. The first iteration of the loop will, this arg will equal 5, so total plus total equals total plus 5, that would be 5. The second iteration would be 10, so that's 15, and then the third will be 1, which is 16. So now what we'd expect to get is the value 16 returned. So look at that, we can go ahead now and we can pass any number of numbers into this, and it will add all these up for us, and we don't even need to worry about defining them within the function. Now this isn't the most useful example, however there may be circumstances where you are not sure of what data that you want to pass through to a function. For example, let's just say, I'm not going to demonstrate this visually, but let's just say that we have a function that returns fields from a database. Let's say user details from a database. You may want to leave this open so we can pass new values in it, and we don't have to go back to our code and start editing the parameters that we get. Let's just say we need to pass in which fields that we want to return from a user row. We could say pass like this. I'll just quickly demonstrate. We could say pass first name, last name, date of birth, for example, and I could just call this, say, user data. Now user data would then loop through each of these. It would pick this up within a query, so it would put these fields into a query, and then it would go ahead and return that result set. So again, I'm not going to show you because it's beyond the scope of this tutorial, but there's a variety of ways you might need to do this. And of course, you may want to go ahead and you may want to pass a value into here as well. So we're going to take a quick look at func_get_arg as well as func_get_args. So let's go ahead and just get rid of this. And here we'll just say, I don't know, add. In fact, let's say append. No, we'll call the function append, and then we'll call the function. So append. Now I want an initial string, and I want to be able to pass through a value to this, the initial string, and then supply any amount of parameters on here to append to it. So again, useless, but it demonstrates that we can pass one parameter and then an unlimited amount of parameters as well. So I want to append, let's just say I want to append my surname onto my first name. We'll add a space in here, we'll do all that in a minute, but it's just to demonstrate how this can work. So append initial. So what we need to do is we need to let's go ahead and say, we'll say result equals nothing for now, Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look first of all at the func get arg value. So function, sorry. So I'm going to say func get arg, and I'm going to specify 0. Now this is a function, but it basically takes as the parameter the key of what you're passing. So we can pick out particular values in here. So let's just say we wanted to just return the initial value. I could go ahead and echo append, and I could go ahead and refresh, and you see we just got Alex here. Okay, so notice that PHP hasn't errored because we've passed an extra parameter even though we've defined one. It will only error if you don't pass all of them, all the parameters that are defined in here. So if we were to pass nothing, we'd get that error. Okay, so now let's look at making this work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say for each, and again for each func get args as arg. This time I'm going to make a slight change and I'm going to say key and arg. So basically I'm grabbing the key, which will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, blah blah blah, and then the arg, which will be the value. So I could probably call this value, it'd make a bit more sense. So what I can do now is, in fact, just to demonstrate, let me go ahead and echo out key. We've got 0 and 1 because we've passed 2, so this is 0, this is 1. So now what I can do is I can create a quick if statement in here, and I'm going to say if key is greater than or equal to 1, then we want to say result dot equals, so again the same as plus equals, but we're appending this time, so dot equals space, and then we can append on the value. Okay, so we're essentially saying append or the result, sorry, we're saying for any of the keys which are greater than 0, so ignoring this, append this onto the result. Obviously the result needs the initial value on, so at the moment we just have, oops, we're not returning anything. Let's just go ahead and return result. At the moment this will just return a space and then Garrett, you can see, or well, it won't return a space because we've not got anything in front of it. What we need to do is we need to make use of the func get arg function. So what we can say is result initially equals func get arg 0. So we're setting the result initially to the first parameter that we pass, and then for every other parameter we're adding a space and then that parameter. So Alex Garrett, refresh, it now says Alex Garrett. I can then say Alex James Garrett, and it will do exactly the same thing. So it will loop through, ignoring this first passed parameter, and it will just append it on it every time. Now you might be thinking, why is this useful? Well, think about it this way. If you are, say, registering a user in, I don't know, on your website, and you ask them for, you know, an array of names, so you could, or an array of values, or anything, I don't know, it could be different keywords for, say, a video upload, say tags for a video upload, anything like that that's separated out. Of course we could use things like explode, but depending on how you're adding them, if you're using different fields, you could, you know, append things together, or, well, you wouldn't, but this is essentially an example, but I think it's quite a good example to show you how to use the func get args, blah blah blah, this for each if you're new to this, and skipping over this first result. Anyway, that is how we pass parameters that we don't define in PHP. It's an extremely useful technique which saves you a lot of time and also application speed as well.